Hi everybody, Dan Illman here, taking a look at a really good edition of the Grade 1 Belmont Oaks. It's race number 9 at Belmont at the Big A on Saturday. Let's throw up the field. It's a 500 grander. It's a Grade 1. We're going 1 mile and 3/16 for 3-year-old fillies, and you've got a little bit of everything in here. You've got 3 European imports, a couple of those which are proven commodities at this distance. You have a couple from the Cherie DeVoe barn, including the impressive She Feels Pretty, who looked so good Preakness weekend in winning the Hilltop in her seasonal debut. And you've got a couple of horses that have issues perhaps with this distance, or at least question marks, one of them being She Feels Pretty. Let's see where Timeform US has these horses at the half-mile pole on the Timeform US pace projector, and they have She Feels Pretty out there. I wouldn't be surprised if she's close to the pace. I'm not sure if Cherie wants to have her out there on the lead going 1 mile and 3/16 for the first time. I do think the 6 Suggest is going to be the one to carve out the fractions, with She Feels Pretty not far behind in second. A horse like the number 1 Pinup Betty can perhaps sit a good trip in third. I think the Europeans are more apt to come from off of the pace. Also, a horse like Cy B will probably rally from out of it. I think Suggest is going to make the lead, and she could be dangerous if she drops the anchor on the front end. We'll start things off with the number 1 Pinup Betty, who is just in razor-sharp form for trainer Michael Maker. She's won her last 2 starts, including the Grade 3 Regret last time out at 1 mile and 1/8, and the way she's won her last 2 races, both of them at 1 mile and 1/8, makes me think this distance isn't going to be an issue at all. It's not like they were going gangbusters up front, and Pinup Betty ran right by him last time out. She's going to be taking a little bit of a class hike. This is a better field than the one she beat in the Regret, but she's in excellent form, has good tactical speed, might work out a nice pace-tracking, ground-saving trip at playable odds. The 2 is dynamic pricing going out for Chad Brown, and like Pinup Betty, she exits a graded stakes win at Churchill Downs. That was the Edgewood over a very yielding turf course going 1 mile and 1/16. Now, while she did get the right race flow, there was a fast pace in front of her. I think she deserves a few extra points. She was 4 wide most of the way, and she was able to grind it out in the manner of a horse that would appreciate the extra distance. I think that dynamic pricing is going to do okay going 1 mile and 3/16. I don't want to pigeonhole her as a horse that just improves on yielding turf. She did beat 2 next out winners in that most recent start, and if you give her a little bit of pace, I think she'll come running at the end. The 3 is Fun with Flags, who ships in from France. She was a stakes winner 2 starts back at Saint-Cloud. Last time out, they ran her in a Group 3. She ran second that day. I'm just not sure what she was in against. A couple of horses have already come out of that race, and they really haven't done much in their subsequent starts. So to me, Fun with Flags has some class questions to address, but distance isn't going to be a problem. And if this race comes down to a staying contest, Fun with Flags is one of the ones you might want to consider. Buku is the number 4, a multiple graded stakes winner over the Keeneland turf course. She ran just fine, finishing second in the Regret behind Pinup Betty. She was beaten by dynamic pricing 2 starts back. I wonder, after 9 lifetime starts, that we've perhaps already seen Buku's best, and I wonder if she needs to improve just a little bit against this quality field. But she has a strong late kick when given enough pace and the right trip. Secret Satire is the number 5. Frankie Dettori's going to pick up the mount. She won the Group 3 Musadora 2 starts back in England. Now, that race was over York's course, which is sort of an American-style turf course, left-handed, tighter turns, might show that she could do well here in the States. She does pull very hard in the early portion of her races, and maybe that could sap her stretch kick just a little bit. It didn't in the Musadora, where she beat the runner-up, a horse that came back to win a listed stakes race. And while she pulled very hard in the Epsom Oaks last time out, I'm not sure she would have won if she behaved perfectly, because that is just such a tough spot. Distance is no problem. I think the class is there for Secret Satire. I'm just curious to see if she is really keyed up in rank in the early portion of this race. Suggesta is the 6, another filly for Chad Brown, coming into her own at perhaps the right time. Let's watch her recent win in the Wonder again. It's her 2nd consecutive victory, and she did a lot of work in here. The pace was solid for the 1 mile and 1/8 distance. They went the half mile in sub 47 seconds. She was right up on the pace, and she was able to still outfinish Cy B, who's also in this spot. I think suggests she'll get the mile in 3/16 with the right scenario, and I think she's going to go to the front under Arad Ortiz and might not have to go as fast in the early stages. She'll be right there when they turn into the stretch. She Feels Pretty, I think, is the most brilliant horse in this race, and perhaps the one with the most upside potential. She's won 3 of her 4 starts, and her only loss came when she was the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and I thought she ran great that day. 4 wide most of the way, bumped in the stretch, only beaten a half length. Cherie DeVaux just picked a really good spot for her on Preakness weekend, the Hilltop, for her seasonal debut. This race is at a mile, and as you can see, she just storms away from her competition to win as pounds the best with a 90 Beyer speed figure. The Hilltop was not a strong race. This is a much tougher spot. I think class isn't going to be a problem for her. I think the distance is a bit of an issue. If She Feels Pretty can win this race, or at least perform very well, it opens up a ton of avenues for the second half of the season. Cinderella's Dream goes out for Charlie Appleby and William Buick, and this one looked really good in Dubai 2 starts back. The saddle slipped, Buick lost the irons. It didn't matter. Cinderella's Dream still won by open lengths. They tried the 1,000 guineas last time out. I thought she gave an okay performance, but those are some of the best 3-year-old filly turf milers in Europe, and Cinderella's Dream just wasn't up to that challenge. She's going to stretch out now for the first time, and that's a little bit of a question mark. She does have that stout European pedigree, but you never know until you try, and you know she's going to take a little bit of money. Another horse that fits, I think, from a class standpoint. We'll see how she gets the distance. And Cy B completes the field, the other Cherie DeVaux horse, but a horse that certainly is not without a chance. We saw her finish second in the Wonder again when she got that right pace set up. She has been doing nothing but good things since moving to the turf and winning that maiden race 2 starts back at Keeneland. I think she's a kind of filly with a ton of upside, and she'll be running at the end of this race. We take a look at my top picks. I am a little concerned about the distance for She Feels Pretty, but I've just been wowed by what I've seen on the track from her thus far. She's got a really strong turn of foot, and if she can replicate that going a mile and 3/16, she'll certainly be a handful. But demand a little bit of value on She Feels Pretty because she's got to go a mile and 3/16 for the first time. Dynamic pricing's interesting for me because I do think the distance will be okay, and I think she's another coming into her own. Looking forward to seeing what She Feels Pretty does in Saturday's Belmont Oaks.